The Yakuza, often described as one of the most organized and enduring criminal syndicates in the world, have been a central and paradoxical part of Japanese society for centuries. Unlike many organized crime groups that operate purely in the shadows, the Yakuza historically functioned with a level of visibility and organization that is unique. They have corporate headquarters, official titles, business cards, and even public websites, distinguishing them from the clandestine nature of other global mafias. However, beneath this veneer of legitimacy lies a vast network of criminal activity involving extortion, drug trafficking, gambling, human trafficking, cybercrime, and more. Understanding the Yakuza as a real crime syndicate requires exploring their historical roots, organizational structure, methods of operation, political and economic ties, and the ways in which modern Japanese society and law enforcement have sought to combat their influence. The origins of the Yakuza trace back to Japan's Edo period, 1603 to 1868, where they emerged from marginalized groups operating on the fringes of society. Two primary groups formed the foundation of what would become the Yakuza: the takiya, peddlers, and the bakuto, gamblers. The takiya were itinerant merchants who often sold counterfeit goods and extorted protection money at markets and festivals. The bakuto ran illegal gambling houses, a practice that was strictly prohibited but widely popular. Both groups existed outside the legal and social mainstream, but they provided mutual support, protection, and order within their communities, developing codes of conduct and hierarchical structures. The bakuto culture gave rise to many aspects of modern Yakuza identity, including their name. Yakuza comes from the Japanese card game Oicho Kabu, where the worst possible hand is 893, Yakuza. Symbolizing good for nothing or useless, the term reflects the outsider status of these groups. Over time, the takiya and bakuto began organizing into larger groups with more formalized structures. By the late Edo period, they had established hierarchies based on the oyabun-kobun, parent-child, relationship, which emphasizes absolute loyalty and obedience in exchange for protection. The end of World War II marked a critical turning point in the development of the modern Yakuza. Japan's defeat and the subsequent U.S. occupation created widespread social and economic chaos. Food shortages, unemployment, and a breakdown in law enforcement created opportunities for organized crime to thrive. The Yakuza took advantage of the black markets that emerged during this period, controlling the distribution of goods and enforcing order in lawless neighborhoods. They also became heavily involved in prostitution, smuggling, and gambling, laying the foundation for their post-war power. The 1950s and 1960s saw the rise of the Yakuza as powerful national syndicates. The most prominent among them, the Yamaguchi-gumi, grew rapidly under the leadership of Kazuo Taioka, often referred to as the godfather of the post-war Yakuza. Taioka expanded the organization's reach across Japan, enforcing strict discipline within the group and forging alliances with legitimate businesses. By the 1960s, the Yamaguchi-gumi had become the largest Yakuza syndicate in Japan, a position it maintains to this day. Other groups, such as the Sumiyoshi-kai and the Inagawa-kai, also expanded during this period, and together these syndicates formed the core of what is now known as the Yakuza. A defining feature of the Yakuza is their strict organizational structure, which resembles both a traditional samurai clan and a modern corporation. At the top is the Oyabun, boss, who wields absolute authority and is considered a paternal figure. Beneath him are Wakagashira, lieutenants, and Shate, younger brothers, who oversee various operations and territories. Lower-ranking members, or kobun, children, carry out orders and enforce the syndicate's will on the streets. The structure is maintained through loyalty, ritual, and punishment. One of the most infamous forms of punishment is yubitsume, or the cutting off of a finger segment as a form of apology and atonement. Membership in the Yakuza involves elaborate initiation rituals that reinforce loyalty and hierarchy. The Sakazuki ceremony, in which the Oyabun and Kobun share cups of sake, symbolizes the familial bond between leader and follower. Betrayal or disobedience is met with severe consequences, including expulsion, physical punishment, or even death. This rigid internal discipline, combined with a deep sense of loyalty and brotherhood, has allowed Yakuza organizations to maintain stability and cohesion for decades, even in the face of external pressure. The Yakuza's operations span a vast array of criminal activities, both traditional and modern. Historically, they dominated gambling, loan sharking, extortion, and prostitution. As Japan's economy grew in the post-war period, they expanded into more sophisticated ventures, including corporate racketeering, real estate speculation, construction contracts, and financial fraud. One of their most lucrative operations has been sokaya, a form of corporate extortion in which Yakuza members buy shares in a company and then threaten to disrupt shareholder meetings with scandals unless they are paid off. Drug trafficking, particularly of methamphetamine, has also become a major source of income. Although Yakuza leaders have traditionally claimed to avoid drugs to preserve their image, many syndicates are heavily involved in production, distribution, and smuggling. In recent decades, human trafficking and forced prostitution have also become significant parts of their operations, often involving the exploitation of foreign women trafficked into Japan. The Yakuza's infiltration of legitimate businesses is another critical aspect of their operations. They have invested heavily in construction, real estate, entertainment, and finance, using these industries to launder money and extend their influence. During Japan's post-war economic boom, Yakuza groups played a key role in urban redevelopment projects, often using intimidation and violence to evict tenants or secure contracts. This infiltration blurs the line between legal and illegal activity, making it difficult for authorities to dismantle their networks. One of the most striking features of the Yakuza is their historical entanglement with Japan's political and economic elites. From the early 20th century, Yakuza groups maintain ties with nationalist and right-wing organizations, providing muscle during political rallies and suppressing leftist movements. During the post-war period, these relationships deepened, with some politicians relying on Yakuza support to intimidate opponents or secure votes. In return, Yakuza syndicates gained political protection and access to lucrative business opportunities. The Yakuza's involvement in the economy was equally significant. During the 1980s bubble economy, Yakuza groups exploited Japan's real estate and stock market booms. They manipulated stock prices, extorted companies, and engaged in large-scale money laundering. The infamous Sokaya scandals of the 1980s and 1990s revealed the extent of their penetration into corporate Japan, with major firms paying off Yakuza groups to prevent public embarrassment. While such relationships have declined in recent decades due to stricter laws and greater public scrutiny, the Yakuza's historical influence on Japanese politics and business cannot be overstated. Their ability to operate within both legal and illegal spheres set them apart from many other criminal organizations and made them deeply embedded in the structure of Japanese society. The Yakuza are not merely criminals, they are also cultural figures deeply woven into Japan's social fabric. They often present themselves as Ninkyo Dantai, or chivalrous organizations, claiming to protect the weak, uphold justice, and maintain order in the underworld. This self-image draws on samurai traditions and Bushido ethics, emphasizing loyalty, honor, and discipline. Many Yakuza rituals, from their hierarchical structures to their code of conduct, reflect this idealized vision of themselves as modern-day warriors operating outside conventional law. Tattoos, or irizumi, are another important part of Yakuza identity. These full-body tattoos, often depicting mythological creatures like dragons, tigers, and koi, serve as both a symbol of strength and a mark of exclusion from mainstream society. The tattooing process is painful and time-consuming, symbolizing endurance and commitment. Popular media has played a significant role in shaping public perceptions of the Yakuza. Films, novels, and video games often depict them as complex figures, violent criminals on one hand, but also men of honor bound by loyalty and tradition. Movies from the 1960s, Ninkyo Eiga genre, portrayed Yakuza as noble outlaws fighting corrupt systems, while later Jitsuroku Eiga films in the 1970s and 1980s depicted the harsh realities of gang life. Modern franchises like Sega's Yakuza, Ryuga Gotoku video games continue to explore these themes, blending crime, morality, and redemption in narratives that reflect society's fascination with these figures. The Japanese government has long grappled with how to control the Yakuza. For much of the 20th century, authorities tolerated their existence as a necessary evil, believing that their structured hierarchy prevented more chaotic forms of crime. This tolerance allowed the Yakuza to operate openly, with registered headquarters and business cards. However, rising violence, high-profile scandals, and international pressure in the late 20th century prompted a shift in policy. In 1991, the government enacted the Anti-Boryokudan Law, which designated Yakuza groups as organized crime syndicates and allowed for more aggressive policing. Businesses and individuals were prohibited from associating with Yakuza members, cutting off key sources of revenue. Further legislation in the 2000s increased penalties for organized crime involvement and expanded asset seizure powers. Prefectural governments also introduced Yakuza exclusion ordinances, banning any financial or contractual relationships with known members. These measures have significantly weakened the Yakuza. Membership has fallen from around 180,000 in the 1960s to fewer than 25,000 today. Many syndicates have retreated underground, abandoning public offices and shifting to more covert operations such as cybercrime and international smuggling. However, enforcement remains challenging. The Yakuza's deep-rooted networks, combined with their adaptability and transnational connections, mean they continue to pose a significant challenge to law enforcement. The Yakuza of the 21st century are not the same organizations that dominated Japan's underworld in the post-war era. Government crackdowns, social stigma, and declining membership have forced them to evolve. Many groups now focus on less visible forms of crime, such as online fraud, cryptocurrency theft, and white-collar crime. Some have expanded operations abroad, forming alliances with Southeast Asian criminal networks and participating in global drug and human trafficking operations. Another major challenge is the reintegration of former Yakuza members into society. Strict anti-Yakuza laws and social discrimination make it difficult for ex-members to find legitimate employment, leading many to re-offend. Non-governmental organizations and some local governments have begun offering rehabilitation and support programs, but social stigma remains a significant barrier. The Yakuza are more than just a criminal organization. They are a complex social phenomenon that reflects Japan's history, culture, and evolving relationship with authority and law. From their origins as marginalized peddlers and gamblers to their rise as powerful national syndicates, they have shaped and been shaped by Japan's social, political, and economic transformations. Their hierarchical structure, strict codes of loyalty, and elaborate rituals distinguish them from other criminal groups, while their deep involvement in legitimate business and politics blurs the boundaries between crime and society. In recent decades, the Yakuza's power has waned under legal pressure and changing social attitudes. Yet they continue to adapt, finding new ways to survive in an increasingly globalized and digital world. Their cultural impact remains profound, influencing art, media, and public discourse. The Yakuza embody a paradox. They are both a symbol of Japan's darker undercurrents and a reflection of its enduring traditions of loyalty, hierarchy, and identity. As Japan continues to evolve, so too will the Yakuza, an enduring reminder of how deeply organized crime can be woven into the fabric of a nation.